Sweet YangYang is here at last to dispatch of all your enemies, and today I'm gonna tell you how to build her best. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Which echoes call out to dear YangYang? Well, 5-piece Moonlit Clouds is going to be her most effective choice. The 2-piece increases her energy regen by 10%, which is important as her main source of grouping is within her burst, and the 5-piece gives the next character that she swaps to a 22.5% attack increase that lasts for 10 seconds. YangYang is a supportive character, so a set like this which aids her teammates is essential. 5-piece Rejuvenating Glow is another valid option. The 2-piece is useless as YangYang has no forms of healing within her kit, but the 5-piece is where things become more relevant. When YangYang performs her outro skill, everyone's attack increases by 15% for 30 seconds. Moonlit far exceeds Glow in terms of performance simply due to the ER being such a big deal. You can also go for a 2-piece mix and match combo of 2-piece Sierra Gale and 2-piece Lingering Tunes. Sierra Gale gives 10% arrow damage bonus, which is pretty neat, and Lingering Tunes providing 10% attack to YangYang. This is neat if you want to focus on her damage a little more, and is a great placeholder until you can farm 5-piece Moonlit. 5-piece Lingering Tunes also works as YangYang can increase her attack by 5% every 1.5 seconds up to 4 times, so a 20% attack buff overall. This is only good if you're trying to play a DPS YangYang, and the outro skill damage bonus is wasted here. As for the main echo, the Pokemon that you'll want to equip with YangYang, well, with Moonlit Clouds, the Impermanence Horn will be best for YangYang. It will give YangYang 10 flat energy, and give the next character after her a 12% damage bonus for 15 seconds. But with Rejuvenating Glow, Bellborn Geocalone is preferred. This provides YangYang with a shield that gives 50% damage reduction and a 10% damage increase to the next 3 attacks. Both of these are supportive echoes which work nicely with YangYang's kit, with Horn honing in on her energy qualities and Rejuvenating Glow adding some extra buffing and shielding utility to her. As for main stats to aim for, simple. Each echo is separated by cost, so the cost number of each stat will be shown below as I talk about them. Crit percent, ER percent, arrow percent, attack percent, or crit percent, arrow percent, attack percent. As for substats, go for these. Collect any of those on your echoes, and you should be good to go. You want at least 35 to 45% ER for your YangYang to truly shine. And what weapons does YangYang wish to deploy? Well, her immediate best in slot will be S1 Emerald of Genesis. This increases her ER by 12.8%. When she uses her skill, her attack is increased by 6%, and this can stack up to 2 times. It'll last for 10 seconds. This will be the best across all of YangYang's general playstyles. Lunar Cutter will be her next best in slot. When YangYang appears, she'll gain 6 layers, aka stacks, of Oath. Each layer will increase her attack by 2%, which can stack up to 6 times, and can trigger once every 12 seconds. You'll lose a stack once every 2 seconds, and once you've killed the enemy, YangYang gains an extra 6 stacks of Oath. Next up is Commando of Conviction, which has the potential to outperform Lunar Cutter at R5 if you're focusing less on YangYang's own damage and more on her ability to support a hypercarry. The passive isn't overly useful, but the healing is what makes it special. Then there's Lumen Gloss. This will increase YangYang's basic and heavy attack damage for 20% for 10 seconds after she uses her Resonance skill. Nice if you want to pull off some basics on her. As for Sword, #18, yes, that is literally its name. When YangYang's HP is below 40%, the damage of heavy attacks is increased by 24%, and when a heavy attack hits a target, this will restore 5% HP. Neat. If you're playing a Rejuvenating Glow YangYang, you can also consider using Originite, Type 2. It's easy to S5 and grants YangYang a Concerto effect when she comes on field, increasing attack by 10% for 5 seconds. This is mostly useful so that you can actually trigger Rejuvenating's passive. You can build her weapon based on damage potential if you'd like, but bear in mind that you don't have to since she's more of a supportive unit based on grouping. As for what teams YangYang plays in, well, you can play her anywhere for starters. Grouping is a universal mechanic that will be great in both the early game and also in any team in general. Slaughter is your second support anywhere and you should be fine, but she is capable of giving your teammates synergy, and because of that, yes, YangYang actually does find herself having quite a few more specific synergies where she can really shine. She has the only energy funnel outro in the game, which gives her the niche usage of cutting down ER percent requirements for hyper carries. Her team, which will have the most in-game presence in the future, is Encore, YangYang, and Sanhua. Her energy passing is really appreciated here. This is where you will see YangYang used the most. Encore is fairly weak outside her ult, so you want to stay inside of it as much as possible. YangYang aids with this. Plus, in early game, we won't have many echoes to build quality ER with, so for all you new players that get Encore on the Novice banner, YangYang's here to save the day. Also, in the first 3 weeks of the game, Yinlin will not be available, which is a shame for Kalcharo mains, right? Wrong, because YangYang is actually a sublime replacement to help with his ER and keeping his ult up. Plus, if you lose the 50-50 on Yinlin's banner as a free-to-play, then YangYang's got your back. So team of Kalcharo, YangYang, and Baiji, or Varina, will be Virgil Roth's best team for the first 3 weeks of the game's release until Yinlin comes out. Jian also loves YangYang, as much like Encore, he is very ult-based. Plus, she has great grouping, pair that with Jian's amazing AoE, and you'll be overflowing with power. Jian's entire kit revolves around being buffed by his burst, which is part of what makes YangYang such a great early game choice when you don't have the ER echoes to fully gear out Jian. Do note that she's massively beaten out by a more Teffy for Jian though. But as sustaining falls off in late game with bosses one-shotting you, I can see sustainerless Jian Mortefi YangYang becoming a thing. She will also play well with Alto and Chixia if you're interested in playing those characters for a similar reason. These two aren't particularly standout, but comps can be made with them that help YangYang shine. Simply put Alto or Chixia in front, then YangYang, then a support like the free Baiju is absolutely busted, or the totally busted Varina. Then let all hell break loose. I'd say if you're playing YangYang in a team, avoid pairing her with Jianxin, since they are both groupers, and Jianxin's grouping is incredibly strong compared to YangYang, so don't force them to compete in the same team, separate them for the most value. YangYang can also take use of the ER provision for his own burst, though he's less of a prominent choice compared to the others I've mentioned here. Example teams include Kalcharo, YangYang, Baiji, Encore, YangYang, Sanhua, Jian, YangYang, Varina. The core of DPS YangYang healing support should net you wonderful teams, no matter who you play with her. Just keep in mind that not every character cares about energy, those who really do have already been mentioned. How does YangYang's kit work? Well, when it comes to the basics of playing her, her basics deal simple strings of arrow damage. Her heavy attack, mid-air attack, and dodge counter are all fairly basic in terms of mechanics. One thing to note is that her strings of basics is fairly unforgiving. Her skill will cause her to cast a small grouping vortex which sucks in nearby enemies. Pretty nice in the overworld. Her Resonance Liberation, aka Burst, will create a much larger grouping vortex that sucks in nearby enemies. Her Forte Circuit will allow her to cast Stormy Strike after a heavy attack once she has 3 melodies, dealing arrow damage. The mid-air version of this attack will cause her to perform consecutive strikes after diving from mid-air. Melody is gained every time YangYang casts her basic level 4, and she also gains a melody for every Zephyr song and resonant skill hit. As for her inherent skills, her I-1 will let her recover 30 stamina every time she casts a mid-air feather attack release. Her I2 will grant her an 8% arrow damage bonus for 8 seconds after casting her intro skill, Cerulean Song. When it comes to her concerto skills, her intro skill will send the target into the air, dealing arrow damage, and her outro skill will recover 4 resonance energy per second for 5 seconds for the next character, being the greatest point of utility within YangYang's kit. This outro skill is what makes her busted. As for priority, level YangYang's ultimate first since it's the main meat of her kit, then her skill, and then you can level her basics if you're interested in her damage. And if you get copies of this lovely lady, S1 will give YangYang a 50% arrow damage bonus every time she uses her intro skill. S2 will give her 10 resonance energy every time YangYang hits a target, which can be triggered once every 20 seconds. S3 provides her with a 40% damage bonus to her resonance skill, and her Windfield's pulling effect is expanded by 33%. S4 will increase the damage of her mid-air attack by 95%. Her S5 will increase the damage of Resonance Liberation, Wind Spiral by 85%, and S6 will increase the attack of all teammates by 20% for 20 seconds. All of these are good, but we don't need to stress about absolutely needing them for YangYang to be a good character to play. I like her S3 as it emphasizes her grouping aspects. YangYang is a wonderful mix between hybrid and support, which can provide plenty of early game utility to your account while also being a cheap option that works to great effect within certain endgame scenarios. Don't sleep on YangYang just because she's free. Make the most out of said opportunity, as she's one fantastic unit. Hopefully this guide was able to get your YangYang blowing enemies into the afterlife. This has been Juice, signing out. And is it just me, or are waifus of black hair always the cutest?